I believe we have most people in from the waiting rooms. So we're going to get started with our medical terminology webinar today. Hello, everyone. I just want to quickly introduce myself. I am Gautam Mandala, a junior at Purdue University studying biomedical health sciences. And I also am honored to serve HOSA as the International Post-Secondary Collegiate Board Representative. And first and foremost, I want to thank GW Publisher for supporting the medical terminology competitive event and this webinar. And before moving on, I want to thank two wonderful and dynamic presenters that we have coming up later. First, Mrs. Linda Stanhope is a medical technologist who is also a retired health science instructor for 24 years from Amarillo ISD, and Mrs. Kim Turnbull, who's a registered nurse who recently retired after 20 years of teaching health sciences at Abilene ISD. Both Mrs. Stanhope and Mrs. Turnbull are currently working with Goodhart Wilcox Publishers on health science curriculum and with Texas HOSA with their competitive event team. So thank you so much for your contributions and services. And we also appreciate our partners at GW Publisher for sharing their knowledge on the topic of medical terminology tonight, especially because my HOSA journey started with the medical terminology event about 6 to 7 years ago now when I was just coming into high school. I was super interested on the topic of medical terminology, and then I found the organization of HOSA. And now I'm here 7 years later, sitting in front of you on this camera, and it's because of the medical terminology event. So I want to thank all of you for joining us this evening to learn more about this competition. And with that, I will hand it over to Mrs. Stanhope to start this exciting session. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We are excited to be speaking with a mixed audience of both instructors and students, and we are hoping that everybody is going to walk away with some useful and fun tips for learning or teaching medical terminology. So we're going to get going here. Kim, you want to bring up the PowerPoint real quick?
Can you not see the PowerPoint?
No, ma'am.
Uh-oh. Okay. I'm going to stop share and reshare real quick here. Here we go. All right. Can we see it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay. All right. So let's go into view mode. Slideshow. Okay. All right. We're on the second screen here. Okay. There we go.
Okay, so basically the things that we're going to try to share with you guys in the short time we have together is we're going to talk a little bit about study skills that you guys can utilize when you're really competing for any event here in HOSA, but they are especially helpful if you are in an event such as one of the health science different events where you're taking an online test or a paper test in front of you, those type of reviews. And then we're going to talk a little bit about case studies and medical records, a lot of drills, some bell ringers, games, and different types of competitions you can do both online or in-class activities with your fellow students. So we'll get started.
Yes. And so real quick, just to make sure you know where to find this excellent piece of information, there's a link here to the medical terminology guidelines from the HOSA website. It's very important if you want to compete in medical term. Always run with the most recent and updated guidelines. And so in front of you, you have your guidelines sitting here. When you get started really diving into the learning part of it, your references are super, super important. And then also when you go back into the test plan here, it's all laid out on the different percentages of what you will be tested over. So that's also a great information that you need to begin your study skills. Okay, just wanted you to be aware of that you have that. Okay, all right, back to the PowerPoint. Okay, and then next we have some ideas on how to start with foundation as far as your study skills. So don't forget your time management. If you are a planner, a study, um, that you use a calendar, or if you use a schedule, refer to it often and make sure that you have the ability to update it. Make sure that your deadlines are on point, and your projects are broken down into your different segments, and you are on point with the deadlines for those big projects. Be flexible. And if you're not using your phone for the study habits, set it down and put it away. Make sure that productive study environment works for you. Find that sweet spot that you love to really hone in and take the time to work through your study skills. Summarize your lectures, your classroom, your labs, maybe some of the games that you're using. Go back and summarize those and look back at your notes frequently to review. Practice your test taking. I don't know if you are anything like me, but you may have some stress when you come to sit down for a test. And so practice what works for you. Get into your own space. Pop a peppermint in your mouth. Just kind of go to your happy place on top of the mountain or in a meadow or wherever that may be, and just get calm and just keep on practicing. Take breaks. Make sure that you give your brain a reset and walk away from it. Studies have shown that you need that little break time to get your brain to get charged up again and come back, take the dog on a walk, switch over the laundry, finish your chores that you've started in the kitchen or whatever. But do that as well. And then last, but certainly not least, make sure that you seek help and get with your study groups and those people that are of the like mind that you are maybe competing against or competing with, and use them as your sounding board and your best friends for studies.
Okay, so one of the sorry, I got a little feedback there. So one of the things that Kim and I always used in the classroom was case studies and scenarios. In our Goodhart Wilcox book, we use them in every chapter, trying to help students understand that medical terms are real, and there's a meaning and a time that they're going to be used and why they're being used. So if you're looking at like medical transcription here of the medical terms and abbreviations, this is the longhand right there. But if you've got a scratch pad, real quickly, if you guys could translate what it would look like for you to do number one, the patient needs rest, ice, compression, and elevation. So we would be translating that. That's the actual long read. But if you're having to go really fast and write things down, what you're going to actually probably end up writing is simply PT RICE, which stands for patient needs rest, which is the RI, which is the ice, compression for C, and elevation. So you're going to use that transcription, and this is also what you're going to be tested on when you're taking the medical term test. There's going to be medical terms, there's going to be abbreviations, and you want to look at case studies and scenarios and medical records. One of the ways that you could do that pretty easily anymore, as a instructor, you can hone in and just actually write your own from case studies of what has happened to your daughter or your mother or your grandfather, and that's basically what we did in our book. Is we took real life stories and then just changed the name to protect the innocent type thing. But these were really common, and nowadays that everybody has got the electronic charts a lot of times from their physicians. You can get on there, you can see your x-ray reports, you can see your lab reports. It's really important that you go into these medical records, because that's where you see the medical terminology, and you're going to be able to transcribe it into the words and the meaning and understanding a lot better.
So just diving into a little bit of what the companion site looks like on the website for the Intro to MedTerm. If you are using this, you probably already know this, but for those of you that don't have this, this is a great resource for you to play the games and do the things. And so I'm just going to click on a couple. If you don't have your flashcards, you haven't made them by hand, you're not using Quizlet and that sort of thing, you can use this one. And so you go to this area here and you take a look at this e-flashcard and you go, what is that? I think that's pertaining to. All right, so we're going to tap that one. Yes, it is. Okay, we're going to remove that one because I know that one. All right, so the next one is algia. Okay, I think that one is pain. So we're going to guess at that one. Pain. There it is. I know that one. So if you come to one that you don't know, let's see if that one, ooh, airy. I would say a condition of, am I right? Oh, it's pertaining to. That's super close. I better keep that one. And so, you can play with that sort of tool. The other one I have down here, if you don't have like a paper matching, this is kind of fun too. I'm not going to do all of it, but I'm going to do a couple of it and see if I can't get the right answer. So radiographic image used to diagnose skeletal changes in the body. So that would be X-ray. Okay, so I got an A. So let's check my answer. Oh, yay. Got that one right. Woo! All right. Super cool. All right. So the vocab game is also one, it's one of my favorites, is a little bit like Jeopardy. And so let's pick a hard one. Here we go. All right. So 400 points. The vertical plane that divides the body into unequal left and right sections. Okay, unequal. Oh dear. Let's see. It's not the cardiac muscle. All right, epidemic. Okay, it's got to be the sagittal plane. We're going to go with the sagittal plane. Let's see what we got. Woo! Got her right. All right. Okay, so let's do one more for 300. Okay, so the body position of lying on the side with the hip and the knee straight and the other hip and the knee bent or flexed. So it's got to be the Sims, right? Check the answer, and it's right. Woo-hoo! Okay. All right. And then we've got the drop and drag. I know there are other um, examples out there. This is kind of fun. This took me a good 5 minutes to complete it, but I'm just going to check a couple of answers here. So the tibia and the fibula. So tib is the bigger and the fibula is the smaller. And let's see if I'm right. I'm going to submit it. Woo! I remembered right. Okay, awesome. Okay. All right, last one. This is my all-time favorite, and I hope you can hear what it says. If it doesn't, if you can't hear it, I'm going to go ahead and say it. All right, so
Abbreviation.
so what it said was abbreviation. And so I'm going to attempt to type it in, abbreviation. Okay, all right, check my answer. Sorry, did not spell the word. Of course, I knew that. It was ION, but I just did that on purpose. But anyway, so you get 3 tries. So let's try that again. Here we go. I think, I don't know. I'm thinking, does it want to tell me the right answer? Okay, check. Yeah, okay, I got it. But anyway, this is kind of a fun one. So anyway, those are some companion website exercises that you can do to practice your med term, and it's kind of fun and enjoyable. This is a great way to take a break, honestly. So these are the medical reading choices and resources for right now. And it's a great way to delve into a novel type of a setting, give your brain a break, and then read about certain situations that are real life stories and also real life scenarios, along with bringing in those terms, abbreviations, scenarios that are first and foremost, and it helps you put those terms in perspective, and it helps you understand um, the the whole message. This is a little snippet from Gifted Hands, and it talks about the heart-lung bypass machine, where the body the blood is cooled down to a nice 68 degrees. So the babies can be separated. And so it goes a little bit farther into talking about, how long they can have that, and what happens. And so it's a really great way to put yourself in that position and help you visualize what those terms mean. If you don't understand it, you can reach out to your instructor. You can look it up on your phone or whatever, but it helps you understand in context. And it's a really a nice, relaxing tool.
Okay, so something that's kind of low tech, but I used it all the time in the classroom and my kids really enjoyed it, was where we would label the anatomy. And I would do this frequently as a bell ringer right after we had discussed the anatomy of a particular system. I would have a diagram for them and they would come in and I would have them actually placed inside a page protector. So that way I didn't have to run off teachers 100 copies in a day because I literally had over 120 kids in my medical term class, and that was a lot of paper copies. So I would just simply run off about 20 of them that I would put on inside a sleeve there, and then my kids would work on it with their shoulder partners. And as they worked with it with their shoulder partners, they did this as a bell ringer. So they only had about the first 5 minutes of class. And this gave me an opportunity to put out fires, answer emails, and take attendance. So I would be doing that while the kids had their 5 minutes to work on that together. And so they would talk about it and they would write down their answers. And that first day that they would get this labeling practice, they would have to, after they did it, and Kim, go ahead and go to the next slide. After that first, that 5 minutes, then I would put up the answers on the board and then I would go back over and I would explain, they would hear me say the word. They would check to make sure it was spelled correctly on their paper. And so in just a short amount of time, in that like 10 minutes, they had a chance to talk about it, write it, hear it, then once again, look at it, examine it, and grade it. So this is a great learning tool. And my kids said it really helped them to do this on a daily basis. So that first day, they would have to get like 14 correct in order to get some kind of little bonus. On the second day, then they would have to get like 18 of them correct. And then the last day, they would have to get all of them correct. And then that final day, it would no longer be a shoulder partner activity. They would be having the quiz on this identical piece of the diagram. So they knew what the diagram was going to be, but they'd had a lot of practice beforehand. But they said it was a really great way for them to focus on where the parts were, understanding that the words had a meaning and a place, and that it made it much easier then when we went into really talking about the pathophysiology and drug treatments, et cetera, that were going to be occurring.
So another way to create or to color or to use pencils and use your written work is to create your own drawing character, your own body, and then label, which is a great way to learn as well. In this assignment here, this was one of the students' favorite assignments of the year, and it was a culmination project, but they got to choose their own character, and it was they could do a superhero, or they could do a cartoon character, or a childhood, or a rendition of their favorite stuffed animal or whatever. And so they drew that, and then they labeled. They had to pick a certain amount of word parts, and then terms, and aside from that, they had to define those as well. But putting them on the person or the character and labeling them where they belong really makes it hone in and helps you understand where things live. So, and another project that they really liked was drawing their little stick fingers. This is a great opportunity to bring in all of those terms that you're learning in midterm, starting with the word parts and then going into the anatomy, and then the conditions and the treatments, and the surgicals, and all of that. And then, just putting it down on a piece of paper and labeling it. For this young lady here, we're in the urinary system, and there's a lot of things going on that mean those terms about how things are going in her bladder and her kidneys and things like that. And when you do this project in the classroom, teachers, it helps with that talk about, well, how do you pronounce something, what's going on when this happens, and so you can chime in and help them with their understanding. In the GW textbook for intro to midterm, on what you're seeing on the left is actually the breakdown of the pronunciation itself, and then the colored items are the breakdown of the word. So retro would be the behind, and then grade would be to go, and then pylo is the renal pelvis, and gram is the record, the image. And so the definition on the right explains that in a little bit shorter version, but very helpful to be able to sound out those long two words, the retrograde pyelogram. So those are helpful, especially when they're looking at you going, "Ooh, this looks like a long, scary word," but it really isn't when you practice it. So.
Another thing that a lot of my students liked, and GW was kind enough to help me out with, is I would make diagram cards for my kiddos. So this was for a lot of my students were very visual learners, and as I'm sure that there's quite a few of you guys that are also that way. And what you do if you're making a diagram card is you're going to put the picture there with the term, and then on the back side of it is going to have the definition of whatever that term is. So here we've got a gentleman with the frontal plate, and then we have a diagram where it shows he's being split from front to back and the terms associated with the front side and the back side. So makes it a lot more when you have that visualization, it's not just a word on a flashcard.
So this exercise seemed to be one of the all-time favorites in my classroom. If you do this, especially the fly swatter, you might want to close your door and make sure there's not testing going on down the hall, because it gets loud. This can be used with word parts, with medical terms, with specific, as you can see right here, this is really specific to the integumentary system, and it deals with the treatments thereof. And so you would have a collar, okay? And the caller would give the definition to, let's choose one up there, the surgical repair of the eyelid. And so you've got two teams on either side with their fly swatters in their hand, and they would be swatting at blepharoplasty. Okay. All right, and trying to get that one. And if the first one who swats it, they would get a point. I know there's other versions of all of this, but it's a fun and crazy game. The other thing that you can do with this type of a grid, of course, is the old-fashioned bingo, and that's always fun on a day when you have a lot of students out and you don't want to move ahead on the lessons, teachers, and so get them to make their own bingo card. Or let me see if this will work. My free bingo cards, if I go here, yes. Okay, so this website, you can actually create your own bingo cards, and you put in the terms, and then it will create the bingo cards in the different order. And so not any of them will be the same, which is what you need. But I like for the kids to kind of make their own. It's nice for them to pick out the terms that they know the least or have problems with a lot of it.
Okay, so another activity that I would do generally at the beginning of the year when I was really trying to help the kids focus in on the fact that if you learn the word part and what the word part means in medical terminology, it's always going to mean that. So I would, for instance, encephalo, once you know the meaning of it, it always means inside the head, or the brain. So you're looking at that. And gram always means picture or a so if you put those together, but they would roll the dice, and everything on a blue dice would be a root or combining form. Everything on the orange dice was going to be a suffix, and then we had a green dice, and that was the prefixes. And they would have to roll them, and they would then just have to put together the word, whatever it rolled out to be. They would have to discuss if this could actually be a word and what that word really looked like or where it was found. So it was kind of fun, but it helped them to really start honing in on the fact that the word part always meant the same thing. You can also do this with popsicle sticks. Once again, I just had a different color popsicle stick for the roots or combining forms, a different one for the suffix, and a different one for the prefix. And the kids really enjoyed doing that, just to kind of really hone in on that this word can go with this or this or this or this. And once they know that word, that it was the value of actually learning the word, because they're going to be using it over and over again.
Okay, so moving forward in the slideshow, we wanted to touch upon some other ideas and some other resources that you might use other than the old school way. And we're going to go forward with the online learning. I know a lot of you already use the Kahoot in the classroom. You can use it with, amongst yourselves actually, because anybody can get in there now. But as you see in the on the screen ahead of you, it has the options. I had typed in the medical terminology because I was looking for med term games, and there is a slew of them. So it's out there. Teachers, this might be a great way to practice. And then also, if you haven't heard of it, Book It as well is a great way to foster competition in your classrooms. It's my students always called it Kahoot on steroids, so so they loved it. But anyway, this is also I typed in medical terms as well, and here you go. You've got a bunch of medical term questions and games already built in. And so this might be another great idea. Students, you can do this as well. You can do this with your group and, be the host of different ones when you have your study session. Just a great idea. Quizlet is one of those older ways that you can actually get on and take a look at the cards. Okay, so let's search for medical terminology here. And I bet there might be a couple here. So up here in your toolbar, you can click on your flashcard sets. You can click on your practice test. And so let's take a look at what a practice test might look like for this one here. Okay. So we've got, and this was built 10/1/25, so just a few days ago. All right, so you got a question about edema and abbreviation for EHR, med term that refers to vomiting. And so you can print those. Oop, got to add there. We don't want to close. Yeah, we just want to close that. Okay, so just, there's lots of tools on Quizlet too that you could use. Also Jeopardy, okay, just a different game. So, if you want to get on there and you want to find a medical term, Jeopardy, there's also that. Okay. All right. And so you can kind of hover over the ones that you might want to take a look at. Okay. So there's one for colors and shapes. This one is specific to digestion, review. Another great way to practice what you need to know. Okay.
If
All
you'll
right.
notice, they had over 1,000 of them already made, but teachers, you can go in and make your own also. So that's pretty sweet.
Excellent. Mhm. All right, here's another one. And this was new to me. The word mint up here in the top of the screen, it has the availability. So you've got crosswords, you've got word searches, you've got bingo cards, word scramble, matching. This is already made material that you can take a look at. Let's see here if I can get into it. Medical terminology. And then let's see where it takes me. There we go. Okay. So if I scroll down here, you've got some word searches. You've got cardiac, crosswords. You've got bingo cards. So there's another opportunity to do some fun things where you've got some paper online. And then this one here, Chat GPT, which is AI driven, very advanced and used a lot for a lot of different things. But you can create a practice test by giving it a prompt, just by typing in create a practice test with commonly used medical terms. So this is kind of like the up and coming way to make the practice test. It's kind of a cool thing. You may be using this already, but this is a great way to practice your skills on test taking, and just the way that you would weed out those answers that are not related to the question, making sure that you're looking at what you really want to answer and how you want to answer. So it looks like we've come to the end of our talk time, and we would like to field some questions if we could.
Some of you have already seen there is a Q&A functionality. Please type in your questions in the Q&A section. Thank you. And just wanted to make the announcement, we will be following up with an email, and this recording will be posted to the HOSA website and the YouTube channel. Kim, did you want me to read a few of the questions?
Yes, please.
Okay. Um, so there's a mix of HOSA related questions and then terminology questions. Um, so we've answered a few. There have been a few questions around the middle school competition.
Hmm.
So I don't know if you guys want to elaborate on the differences. We put in the message that this is offered at the middle school, high school, and collegiate post-secondary level.
Yes, and then the test is probably at the middle school level is geared with more of the more common slash simpler terms and the more common types of pathophysiology. And whereas your secondary, post-secondary are going to be the lesser common of the medical terminology words for the pathophysiology would be my guess on how they're you know um, writing the exam.
And we've also put in the chat those guidelines. So if you want to look at the middle school or the post-secondary collegiate guidelines, those are in the chat. The next question is, do you have any tips for remembering the different prefixes and suffixes?
Flashcards.
That's the all-time favorite. Okay, so we have our officer. What was your favorite way to learn the prefixes and suffixes?
Yeah, it was flashcards. So for me personally, I tried the online route like through Quizlet, but what worked best was I actually got the index cards out and I split them up into Greek and Latin, and then I would do all my prefixes in one set, suffixes, and then my like combining forms and root words and things like that. Space-based repetition was something that really helped. As I got into the post-secondary collegiate division, a name that I heard a lot more was Anki, the flashcard set that med school students and pre-med students used. And that was a game changer because it helped me create my sets, but also practice them throughout the day, no matter what I was doing. And I believe it is free through PCs and Macs. So if you do have a computer or a laptop, Anki could be something you could use. But as Mrs. Turnbull and Mrs. Stanhope mentioned, there's so many sets already made. If I needed a quick refresher and I couldn't actually make the flashcards in person, I would go online and then find those. And that was what was most helpful for me.
Thank
And
you, guys.
students would also, like you were saying, in the Greek and the Latin, but they would also do like the color code. So, how you can go to the Dollar Tree and buy your index cards in bright colors, and then you've also got your whites. So the white ones they would leave for the combining forms because there's so many of those, but there's not nearly the same amount of prefixes and suffixes out there. So they would do, all one color for the prefixes and a different color for the suffixes. And just that recognition of seeing them on the colored paper really helped them on the exam when they would try to break it down. My students said medical terminology was actually the best class for their SAT exams. Also, they were just like, man, I could break those words down. So it's good in all forms of life. Everyone should take medical term.
We have had a few questions about when competitions are in the school year. I'm going to post a link to the Chartered Association page, so you can email directly your state advisor, whether you're in California or South Carolina or Texas or wherever. You just want to find your state, and you can send them a note and ask when the competition is. There's also questions about regional, state, and internationals. The exams are actually different at each one. Um, for the panel, and now our third expert that's entered the webinar, there have been a few questions around whether the exam is open notes or if you can use a dictionary on the exam. Could you speak to that?
It's your brain and what you remember, and that's all that you get to use. There's no open notes, there's no dictionaries, no favorite medical term books.
I think it probably varies from state to state, Bobby, on what at the state or area regional level, that they might allow. However, at ILC, there will be no notes available.
We had a question. How important is medical terminology for different careers in healthcare?
If you're asking me, I would say it's the foundation. I think it's so important to understand the terminology, even at your age, whether you're middle school, high school, collegiate, walking into the doctor's office and listening and hearing those terms and being able to break them down in your head and knowing what they are saying is so valuable, because you end up learning the language of medicine and you can disseminate at any time. And you can be the person that actually understands those terms that your parents and grandparents go through and help them understand with that. Okay. All right, panel. Do you have any other thing to add?
Well, I know a lot of the say, for instance, nursing school, a lot of your different areas, medical term and A&P are the two weed out classes. So if you don't do well in medical term and you don't do well in anatomy and physiology, you don't get a spot in the in their course. So I think medical term is very important. And it really doesn't matter if you are planning on doing nursing school, you plan on being a physician, or you're going into PT. It's across the board. You're going to be in the real world setting, you are going to be seeing it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah,
And I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gotham.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think some of the evidence as to the industry also adhering to the fact that medical terminology is so important is that you look at my major, which is a pre-healthcare major, biomedical health sciences. It preps Purdue students for pre-PA, pre-medicine, pre-nursing, pre-pharm, and all of those require medical terminology as a core curriculum class, because, like Mrs. Turnbull and Mrs. Stanhope said, it teaches you the language that the field works on, and it enriched so many of my experiences when I go to shadow doctors or physicians or nurses now, or when I work as an EMT. um, I can speak the language now, and even if I'm confused about something, I can take a step back and be like, okay, like, what is that word? I know that root. I just got to figure out this, and it enhances every aspect of my life that interacts with the healthcare field. And I know the SAT was brought up, and that is completely true. It helped me lots and lots my junior year and senior year when I was taking the SAT, and now as I'm studying for the MCAT, it's been super stressful, but it would have been a lot more stressful if I didn't have my knowledge base in medical terminology. Because again, if I'm ever confused, I take a step back and the words lead me to the answer most of the time.
Thank you guys for that. We've received a lot of questions that go back to the guidelines. Is somebody willing to speak about the importance of those HOSA medical terminology guidelines and the types of information that you can find within those guidelines?
Sure. Do you mind bringing them back up real quick, Bobby? Or Kim, can you go back to that link?
Yeah, let's see. Let's go back, exit, and then we're going to go back to the beginning here and pull that right back up. Let's see. Let me move this out of. There we go. There you go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so basically, it talks about that it's basically tasting. Well, try to say that again. It is basically trying to look for your knowledge on those words, the breakdown of them from the prefix, suffix, and root words. But then there's, additional words in there that when you go to try to break them down, it's like, that's not really a medical, I mean, it's a medical term, but it didn't come from that beginning. So there's going to be those other words in there that you're going to have to learn in between. But if you'll scroll down just a little bit. So they've got their official references, and you can see that there's lots of medical term books from different authors and from different publishers. But basically, you're going to need to get a medical term book and really study that medical term book. Read it from front to back. When you go to looking at the breakdown of the test, if you'll scroll down just a little more. Okay, they're going to be giving you 50 multiple choice questions. And when you look at that, 45% of them are the root prefixes and suffixes. So that is knowing that just that basic knowledge that we were telling you about. Then that other 55% is going to be pretty much a breakdown of the different body systems. They're going to take 5% of the questions from body planes, regions, when it says the overview of the body. Skeletal, obviously, we're looking at bones. Do you know where that bone is located? So you're going to need to know the locations. That's where those diagrams are going to come into effect to help you out. Same way with, digestive. You're going to be looking at all of the body, all of the parts of the digestive system. And you've learned the word for gastro is stomach, but then what does the stomach do? So you're going to need to know, what is the stomach responsible for? What does the gallbladder do? It stores bile. Okay, where did bile come from? Well, bile is produced in the liver. So you're going to need to know a lot of that anatomy along with it in order to be really successful. The medical term will lead you to the word that is going to be utilized in the test, but you will have an understanding. If you understand that word, then you're really going to know how, when they ask the question of what organ produces the bile, you're going to be able to look at those different organs and know that, because you've already learned the function of those organs and their medical term.
Yeah.
I don't know it. Hopefully that answered. Do you have anything else, Gotham?
Yeah. So I know ChatGPT was mentioned earlier as a study tool. ChatGPT came out, I think, like towards the end of my junior year. So I had access to it for two of my midterms competitions at the state level. And something I did back then was I took the competitive event guideline sheet, like saved it as a PDF, uploaded it to ChatGPT. And because this document has the links to the sources the questions come from and some sample questions that give it a good idea of what kind of questions will come in. And then I gave it a prompt about saying like, hey, this is the breakdown of the test. These are the sources. These are the sample questions. Give me a bank of 500 questions. And it would. And as I'm studying as a supplement, I would go and test myself on it with all the other resources that I had, and it was really helpful because it shockingly gave similar questions to those that showed up on the test in style. And ChatGPT got much, much, much better since my senior year in high school. So I'm sure that's something you guys could use the competitive event guidelines for as well.
We had a question of affordability, thinking of a student that may not have an instructor that has the textbooks in class. I know I've heard recommendations of asking the library, if a local library has the book, or ask the school library to purchase the book. Do you guys have suggestions on finding textbooks where it may be a scenario that the teacher, maybe a student that's trying to find it on their own?
A lot of times, I mean, to be real honest, if you're looking for reasonable priced ones, you could go on Amazon and find a used medical term book. The key is you really do want to study a medical term book that is going to be a good resource, and you would need to really look at the book, because you want one that's going to have in it the pathophysiology. In other words, it's going to discuss disease processes. It's going to discuss treatments, because you're going to be tested over that. You know, you don't want one that is so basic it's just the terms, like a flashcard kind of setting, you know. But you would, that's one place that I know that you can, a lot of times, people will sell their used books, and you know, get a used medical term book, and a lot of times you can get those relatively cheap. But the library itself is actually, you know, if your school library doesn't have one, you might check it out from like the city or county library that's close to you. Kim, you got other ideas?
That's what I was thinking, or maybe tap into a nursing student that has gone through the course before, or maybe former students that have done this competition. They may have the resource tucked away in their room. That might be a possibility. Also, other instructors in the area that you can reach out to. You might be able to. I know we used to borrow resources across our schools. So we had 3 schools in Abilene that we would share resources. And so there's that also could be a possibility if you have a school nearby that has those resources. Check with them and see if you could borrow that for a while.
And even if it's one that's a few years outdated, it would still be better than not having one to study. You know, a lot of the terms have not, the term itself has not changed, which is one of the beautiful things about medical term. It's, you know, a, you know, um, mammogram has been a mammogram since a mammogram was invented, and it's still called a mammogram. So, you know, it's like those names are not changing. You know, if you need to go to one that was another version, you know, you might miss a few of the new treatments, but you know, we're looking at how many questions would that be, you know, in the big scheme of things.
Thank you so much. We've got 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap up. One question is they were asking if the tiebreaker question is going to be 20 additional questions, and that is correct. The 20 tiebreaker questions are in addition to the multiple choice questions that are asked. But as a last question, wanted to hear from Miss Kim and Miss Linda. What's your favorite part about being an author? It's so rare to you know, to have captive authors here on a webinar, and we would love to hear your favorite part about this process.
It is getting to share something you're passionate about. And I'm very blessed that GW approached me many years ago and said, we would like to have a book about medical terminology. Would you consider sharing some of your ideas and maybe working with it? And it has been a blessing. And my first question was, I would love to if I could have a co-author. And they told me that was up to me. I said, I can pick up, and they're just like, yes. So Kim was actually my student, so that really ages me here. But she was always so full of ideas, etc. This was a student in college, so not in high school. So not that many years, but anyway, she had such a fun and great attitude, enjoyed teaching, enjoyed students. And I think that's part of why it was so fun to write this textbook, was that it was a combination. It was a work from the heart. We just put in the things that our kids and students enjoyed doing and learning. We learned, I used experiments in my class. It's like medical term to me is alive and is something that I'm passionate about, and I want everyone else to understand that these words are real, and there's a lot of meaning behind each of those terms. So Kim?
I'm gonna stair step on that. We both did not have great resources when we first started teaching midterm, and so we built them by hand. And so we had a really good, I guess, pot full of things that we used and activities and PowerPoints and ways that would work and ways that didn't work. And it depended on each class really, that came in the door, what worked and what didn't. But we started from the ground up. And so we had those resources and we were thrilled to be able to put that in action in the textbook. And I tell you what, GW, oh my gosh, if there was an editor out there that was the best, we
We
nailed
got
it.
them. We were
We
blessed.
nailed it. They
So,
helped us so much in building a product that we are so proud of and love to share. And I think it's one of the best resources out there to help learn. There are so many extra things that go into that book and the companion website. It's amazing.
Thank you, Mrs. Turnbull, and thank you, Mrs. Stanhope, for sharing your knowledge and your expertise. I wish I had this opportunity to listen to both of you like 5 years ago now, because this would have been instrumental. And I know this is instrumental in many of our participants' medical terminology journey in HOSA. And thank you to GW Publisher for creating this opportunity for this webinar. And thank you for our participants as well who took time out of their day to attend this meeting. We will
thank
be
you.
sending a video recording of the meeting today via email, and we will also be sharing links of the resources we talked about during the meeting in that email. But I think other than that, we should be good unless Mrs. Turnbull and Mrs. Tamo, you guys have anything to add?
No, thank you
No,
guys very much.
Thank you so much,
yes.
everybody.